Good evening. My name is Jainey Bavishi, and I'm the director of the Mayor's Office of Resiliency right here in New York City. I'm so happy to be here tonight, and I've already learned so much about conscious cities. So I hope that this presentation is helpful in the exploration of conscious cities and resilience this evening. I want to focus my comments tonight on the work that the city is doing to prepare for extreme heat impacts due to climate change. But first I wanted to step back and explain that the city is actually preparing for a range of climate hazards. Here in New York City, we're expecting a 50% increase in intense hurricanes by the end of the century, up to 30 inches of sea level rise by the 2050s. In more intense precipitation moving forward, meaning that non-coastal areas will also flood in addition to the coastal zone. And then the temperature, of course, is rising with the number of 90-degree days to triple by the 2050s, with summers in New York City feeling more like Birmingham, Alabama. So I wanted to focus my talk tonight on extreme heat because I was asked to think about what we're doing that is at the center of design, health, and equity, and I couldn't think of a better topic than heat. Extreme heat, many of you may not know, is actually the deadliest extreme weather event that we face here in New York City. Due to the urban heat island effect, densely populated cities like New York City can be 22 degrees hotter than surrounding areas, and indoor temperatures can be up to 20 degrees hotter than outdoor temperatures. And as I mentioned, heat is the deadliest natural hazard that we face, and extreme heat in New York City causes a range of health impacts from dehydration to heat stroke to heat exhaustion, and even 115 excess deaths per year due to natural causes that are worsened by heat exposure. One thing that's extremely important to keep in mind is that extreme heat impacts disproportionately the most vulnerable residents in our communities, especially older adults, those with chronic health conditions, and poverty and poor housing quality are tied to vulnerability to extreme heat. This is a depiction of our heat vulnerability index, which accounts not only for the physical risk indicators of extreme heat, but also the social. So we know that density, low vegetation, the presence of dark impervious surfaces are all factors that cause neighborhoods to be hotter. But we also know that poverty, poor housing quality, age, those are social characteristics that can also lead to heat vulnerability. So you can see from this map that the South Bronx, Northern Manhattan, and Central Brooklyn are areas that are particularly vulnerable to heat, with almost 3.5 million people living in high heat vulnerability census tracts. So to respond to the challenge of extreme heat, the city launched a strategy called Cool Neighborhoods NYC. We launched this strategy in 2017, and it's a comprehensive strategy to both reduce the drivers of extreme heat, basically physically make our neighborhoods cooler, but also protect vulnerable residents inside their homes, where they're most likely to be if they're vulnerable to the impacts of extreme heat. So we are focused on equity, enhancing quality of life, promoting community cohesion, disseminating climate information, among other goals. We've, as part of the strategy, invested over $100 million in targeting tree plantings in key neighborhoods. So I showed you the heat vulnerability index earlier and pointed out the neighborhoods that are most at risk to the impacts of extreme heat. In our office, our principle around climate equity is that we know that climate change is disproportionately impacting certain residents and populations. We want to make sure that our investments are providing environmental benefits to those neighborhoods and populations. So our investments in tree plantings are targeted in South Bronx, Northern Manhattan, and Central Brooklyn. And these images show just the difference trees make in providing shade to communities. And you can imagine that if we cluster these tree plantings in the most heat vulnerable areas over time, they can help to bring ambient temperatures down. Another focus of ours is increasing reflective surfaces across the city. So a particularly targeted program is called NYC Cool Roofs, where we are basically coating rooftops with a special white reflective coating, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a second. This is a program that has coated over 10 million square feet of roofs to date, and we have a target of coating 1 million square feet of roofs every year annually for the next 10 years. This allows us to reduce building energy use. In fact, it can bring temperatures down by 30%, meaning that people can also, building users can turn off their ACs and save energy bills, save money on electricity. And when we cluster these roof coatings in certain neighborhoods, we're able to bring ambient temperatures down. So in 2018 alone, 73% of cool roofs were installed using the heat vulnerability index in the areas of highest need. And this is an image of what NYC cool roofs looks like. So this is Albany houses in Crown Heights in Brooklyn in 2016 before the cool roofs coating. And you can see how dark it is and what a difference it makes to coat all these roofs with that special reflective coating. Before I move on, I just want to note that these investments in design are paired with investments in social cohesion, programmatic investments in social cohesion. So Cool Neighborhoods NYC is also focused on making sure that we're reaching the most vulnerable residents where they're at. In order to do so, we've trained home health aides to detect early signs of heat illness. So when they are making their rounds, or their regular rounds, during heat waves, they're able to help facilitate access to cool spaces or make sure that distressed patients are staying hydrated. Similarly, we've paired up with community-based organizations in the highest heat vulnerability neighborhoods, to pair volunteers with vulnerable residents. And we do this through a program called Be a Buddy. Essentially, we're trying to build these relationships during normal times when there isn't a distressing event, but then activate the relationships during heat waves. And of course, these relationships can then be activated during any other emergency as well. But looking forward, we're really trying to build a culture of resilience. And basically what I mean by that is that we want to make sure that we're thinking about future climate risks in every action and investment that the city is making, and not siloing the resilience investments or projects that we're carrying forward. One tool to do this is our climate resiliency design guidelines, which were initially launched in 2017, and we've iterated over the years. So we've been able to release a new version of the guidelines in 2018, and the latest came out earlier this year in 2019. But it takes our projections for not only extreme heat, but also increasing storm surge, sea level rise, and precipitation, and provides guidance to designers and engineers on how to incorporate these projections into all of our buildings and infrastructure projects. And because this talk is about heat, in particular related to heat, we're including strategies to reduce heat impacts and minimize contributions to heat pollution through increasing reflective surfaces, increasing shading through trees and vegetation, selecting landscape elements that maximize cooling, and reducing and capturing waste heat from AC and other mechanical systems. Thank you.